Welcome back to the shop, guys. In the last video, we diagnosed the leaking rear driver's side diff cover on this 2004 C5 Corvette. This week, we're going to fix it, starting right now.
Toys for life.
Guys, here are all the items you're going to need to complete this repair. First of all, Permatex anaerobic gasket maker. You're going to need the surface prep, and this is important, and I think it's where a lot of people might go wrong. If you're using this on pure aluminum, you're supposed to use the surface prep to get the gasket maker to actually harden. So that's important. We'll look at the data sheet for that later to prove what I'm talking about. You're also going to need an O-ring that goes on the diff cover, and you're going to need a new axle seal that goes inside of the diff cover while you're there. 2 quarts of Mobil 1 synthetic 75W90, 4 ounces of limited slip additive, a new gasket because we'll be removing the driver's side exhaust, and anytime you take an axle nut off, you got to use a new one. So we've got a new one of those. Starting out, let's get the car up in the air. First thing we'll do is pop off the driver's side rear tire and set that aside. Then go ahead and locate the plug that goes to the wheel speed sensor and disconnect it. Then we're going to look for the lever that goes to the level sensor, and we'll pop that off of the A-arm. Next, we'll go ahead and remove the tie rod link from the knuckle, break the nut loose, and then we're going to need to get an Allen wrench socket so that we can hold the stud while we use a wrench to fully remove the nut from the stud. And then we'll just go ahead and set that aside. Next, we're going to have an assistant hold the brakes pretty tight while I spin off the axle nut. It's pretty heavy. I like to use a breaker bar rather than an air impact because I don't like that impact on my CV joints. Moving on to the emergency brake, disconnect the cable from the emergency brake lever, and then go ahead and remove the 2 nuts holding the little bracket to the knuckle. And then once we get the lower one removed, we're just going to go ahead and turn the knuckle a little bit, and then we'll pull the bolt out and set that assembly aside. Next, let's go ahead and remove the driver's side exhaust. These 2 bolts have to come off, and on some aftermarket exhaust like this, the 2 mounting bolts at the rear have to be removed as well. A ratcheting wrench and a combination wrench make this an easy task. And then a socket and extension with a drill make removing the 2 bolts an easy task. And then carefully work the exhaust around the axle and get it out of the way carefully. Now you can see this clears up a ton of room for accessing the differential cover. Next, let's go ahead and remove the vibration dampener from the cover. This is best achieved with an extension wrench from the wheel well area and a 13mm socket. Now is a good time to remove the diff fluid. You'll need a hex head bit and just remove the drain plug from underneath the differential and let the fluid drain. Next, let's go ahead and remove the brake caliper. There are 2 mounting bolts on the back attaching it to the knuckle. And when we get those removed, we'll hang it with a piece of sturdy wire because you never want to let it hang by the hose. Now let's go ahead and remove the mounting bolts connecting the A-arm to the chassis. And we'll go ahead and pull it free and kind of let it sit here for the time being. For this next step, we're going to need a lead hammer. You can use a plastic hammer or a block of wood between the hammer and the spindle and drive it till it's free from the knuckle assembly. And then compress it in towards the transmission so you can free the axle on the exterior portion. Then we're going to slide underneath, and with the pry bar we're going to gently pop it loose from the differential. It just takes a little pop. And now we can go ahead and carefully remove the axle assembly. That'll give us a really good look at the diff cover and the areas that we're going to need to clean where the diff cover mates to the main differential assembly. Moving towards the front, you can see how filthy this part of the diff cover is, where that infamous stud is, so let's get that cleaned. And we're going to use electric motor cleaner, some solvents, and plenty of towels. So we've got this area clean. We're going to remove the factory nut, and then we're going to go ahead and double stud it, which I've already done, and using, in this case, I've got a 17 millimeter on there. I got lucky. I didn't have to apply any heat where the stud goes into the diff cover. So I'm going to slowly remove the stud from the diff cover. And I'll switch here in just a second to a stubby wrench. And then I'll go ahead and get the rest of it out by hand. And here's a closer look of the double nutted setup that you've got to use to back the stud out of the diff cover. Guys, putting together videos like this take a fair bit of time and energy. If you're getting something out of this video, please consider hitting the thumbs up, leaving a comment, and hitting that subscribe button. Thank you. I've gone ahead and spent about 15 minutes meticulously cleaning the entire perimeter of the diff cover where it meets the case, because we don't want any grime falling into the differential. Now we'll start prying carefully around the perimeter of the cover in various spots, but never putting the pry tool between the actual machine surface of the cover and the differential, because you don't want to risk nicking it or anything like that. We're going to continue slowly working our way around the cover, prying on areas that are not the machine surfaces until we get the cover out far enough that we're ready to reach in with both hands and carefully and slowly pull the differential cover out and away from the differential. Now we're going to take it and set it over on the bench. Look at that finely cast piece of aluminum. In all seriousness, take a look at those needle bearings, because when we're cleaning this thing, we don't want to get any dirt and debris inside there. This thing is ugly, it's nasty, it's grimy, so we're going to clean off the seal on top here, and we're going to cover it with masking tape so that when we give it some elbow grease and some wax and grease remover and some towels to clean it through the magic of YouTube, it looks almost amazing. That's about as clean as it's going to get. Now we're going to remove the tape from the top of this seal, which kept those needle bearings nice and clean. Set it on the floor, and with a seal remover, make note of the gap between the seal and the bearings, and make sure you just get the seal. And however you're going to do it, I'm going to use my feet. Just go ahead and pry some more until the seal pops out of the cover. Not bad for 18 years old. Now I've cleaned where the seal goes. Let's open up the brand new seal. And as you can see by the innermost portion, it's got a nice rubber seal. So when we drive this in, it will seal itself so oil doesn't leak out between the seal and the case. Guys, that's going to do it for part 1 of the C5 driver's side diff cover leak repair. Come back in a few days where we'll have part 2. If you liked the video, please hit that thumbs up, leave a comment and subscribe, and as always, thanks for watching.